She slept beside him every night, yet she felt completely alone. No harsh words, no violence, just silence that hurt more than any scream. But one night, when her tears fell on her prayer mat, everything changed. She slept beside him every night, but felt more alone than ever. True Islamic story. She sat at the edge of the bed again, the same spot she'd sat in every night for 7 years, watching the faint glow of her phone's screen fade as the battery died, and the silence between her and her husband filled the room like thick fog. His back was turned to her, as always, his breath steady, lost in dreams she was never a part of. There were no fights, no dramatic arguments, no raised voices, just the quiet ache of being unseen, unheard, unloved. Aisha had been married at 23, full of laughter, Quran recitations, and dreams of companionship, of a partner who would walk with her on the path of faith. But life had a different plan. Her husband, Samir, was a good man on paper. He earned well, prayed sometimes, didn't drink or smoke, but his heart was locked behind the walls of distraction. His eyes were always on the glowing screen, his hands always busy with messages, his smile reserved for everyone but her. She learned to stop asking questions when her words only echoed back unanswered. She stopped dressing up for dinner when her presence became background noise. Slowly, her silence became her language. She poured all her unspoken words into their son, little Yusuf, whose laughter became the only sunlight in her dim world. Every morning, she'd pack his school bag, iron his uniform, and kiss his forehead whispering, "Allah loves those who try." She smiled for him even when her eyes burned from sleepless nights. Samir rarely noticed how she managed everything. The bills, the parent meetings, the fever nights when Yusuf coughed till dawn. He was there, but never with them. His mind lived elsewhere, in work, in calls, in endless scrolling. Sometimes she wondered if she was married to a man or to silence itself. Her mother had once told her, "Patience is a woman's crown, Aisha. Don't let the world take it off." But patience was heavy, and some nights it pressed down on her chest until she could barely breathe. She'd wait until Samir slept, then sit alone on the balcony, gazing at the city lights, whispering to her creator, "Ya Allah, do you see me?" And in the quiet rustle of the night, she always felt a gentle reassurance, as if the stars themselves whispered back, "Yes, my servant, I see you." Her days followed the same rhythm. Cook, clean, care, smile, but her heart grew restless. She watched friends post pictures of happy families, vacations, anniversaries with flowers, and she wondered what love even meant anymore. It wasn't gifts or words, it was presence. And she hadn't felt that in years. She tried to bridge the distance, sending him reminders, messages, soft attempts at conversation, but they drowned in the sea of his indifference. He wasn't cruel, just careless. And that was somehow worse. Over time, Aisha found solace not in people, but in prayer. Tahajjud became her secret refuge. While Samir slept, she poured her pain onto the prayer mat, her tears mixing with whispered duas. "Ya Allah, if I am unseen by him, let me be seen by you. If I am unloved by him, fill my heart with your love." And slowly, her chest began to feel lighter. One evening, as rain tapped gently on the window, Samir returned home late again, barely acknowledging her before locking himself in the study. Yusuf was asleep. The power flickered and went out. Aisha lit a candle and sat alone in the soft orange glow, her reflection flickering on the wall. Something inside her whispered, "You were never alone. You just forgot who was always beside you." She opened her Quran, the same one her mother had gifted her years ago, and as she read, the words hit her differently that night. Indeed, with hardship comes ease. It wasn't a promise of escape, but a promise of understanding, that every pain carried a purpose. Months passed. Samir's silence didn't change, but hers did. It was no longer heavy. It was sacred. She began teaching Quran to children at the local madrasa, something she had long wanted to do. Her mornings became filled with the laughter of young hearts learning Allah's words, and her evenings filled with Yusuf's growing wisdom. He once asked her, "Ammi, why do you smile when you're sad?" She replied, "Because when you smile for Allah, He turns your pain into strength." That line stayed with him for life. But one night, fate decided to speak louder. Samir fell ill unexpectedly. Severe chest pain, rushed to the hospital, panic filling every corridor. Aisha stood outside the ICU, trembling, her heart torn between fear and compassion. Despite all the silence, he was still her husband. She prayed like never before, hands shaking, eyes swollen, whispering, "Ya Shafi, heal him, not because he saw my pain, but because you see my heart." After hours that felt like eternity, the doctor emerged. He was stable but shaken. That night, Samir opened his eyes to find her by his side, reciting Surah Yasin softly. For the first time in years, he looked at her, not past her. "You stayed," he murmured weakly. She smiled. "I made a promise before Allah, not before you." That night marked the beginning of his awakening. He saw the woman who had endured quietly, loved unconditionally, and remained steadfast while he was lost in neglect. His silence turned into reflection. He began praying again, sitting with her during Maghrib, sometimes just watching her recite Quran with tears in his eyes. One day he said, "I used to think silence meant peace, but I realize now it was my arrogance." She didn't respond with anger. She simply said, "Now you understand what patience sounds like." Their home slowly changed, not with flowers or grand gestures, but with warmth. He started joining her and Yusuf for walks, asking her about her day, helping her with the madrasa kids. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. The emotional scars didn't fade overnight, but they became reminders of how Allah heals hearts that refuse to break. And though she forgave, she never forgot the lessons her loneliness had taught her. That true companionship begins with Allah. Years later, when Yusuf graduated and moved abroad, Aisha stood in the same balcony where she once cried silently, now watching the same stars, but with gratitude instead of grief. Samir came beside her, a prayer bead in his hand, whispering, "I wasted so many years not seeing you." She smiled softly. "You didn't see me because Allah wanted me to find him first." The world outside buzzed with chaos, but her heart was still, anchored by faith. The woman who once drowned in silence had risen from it like dawn after a long night. Her life became a testimony that sometimes Allah doesn't change your situation until He changes your heart within it. Aisha learned that being unseen by people can be the greatest mercy, because it allows you to be seen by Allah in ways no human eye ever could. In the end, she realized that love doesn't always arrive wrapped in romance. Sometimes it arrives in the form of understanding, repentance, and dua. Her journey wasn't about losing a man's affection. It was about finding her worth beyond it. And when she finally looked back, she smiled. Not because her story was perfect, but because her patience had written a miracle. For all the women still whispering silent duas in the dark, Aisha's story echoes across hearts. Allah hears you. Every tear you hide, every prayer you think goes unanswered, it's all counted. And when the time is right, He will turn your silence into peace and your pain into purpose. Because no heart breaks in vain when it breaks for Allah. If this story touched your heart, remember, Allah sees your pain even when no one else does. Share this story to remind every silent struggler that their dua is never wasted. Subscribe to Deen in Minute, where every story brings you closer to Allah.